Hello, Becky. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Rob. How are you?
Yes, good, thanks. Had quite a productive morning so far, so all things being equal, if the rest
Good.
of the week carries on like that, it'll be a good week. Well, firstly, thank you very much for joining in this piece of research, if you like, that I'm doing. Would you like to start by introducing yourself and your company and what kind of thing you do? I know you and I know each other, but for the benefit of those who may be watching.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Becky, and I work for a company called Unimax Solutions. I'm the managing director, and we are a Maximizer CRM business partner. So we help businesses that are looking to implement CRM, implement a system that works around their business. So we configure customer relationship management software around individual businesses. So you don't need to change the way that your business operates. You can get a system that supports it.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah. So that's much better than in my history. I've had systems imposed on me, and we've had to change our whole way of working. And I didn't come up with this saying, but it's a great saying: "The tail was wagging the dog." It should have been the other way around.
Definitely. I work with a lot of very frustrated business owners and senior managers that have tried CRM in the past and it's not worked for that exact reason. You know, if you've inherited a system or you've got one and you have to change the way that your business runs, it's never going to give you the results that you need. Whereas if you can configure something to fit around the individual business needs, then you're going to see that return on investment a lot quicker and people are going to use it, which is kind of the big thing. Because as we know, CRM is only ever as good as the work that you put into it.
Indeed, and you just gave me a beautiful segue in there about changing the way you do business, because obviously with the most recent challenges that businesses have faced, a lot of them have been changing the way they do things for understandable reasons. Some of
Yeah,
which
definitely.
are found challenging, pleasant, threatening. Um, and I've spoken to a range of people, and as I said in the original kind of letter I sent out, it's heartening to hear how people have responded. So, as a leader, you obviously got a team there, and you mentioned
Mhm.
about systems only being good as people. Businesses are only as good as their people. So, as a leader, you mentioned one of the questions I posed was about the greatest challenges. One was around furloughing staff, when and if to do that. Would you talk into that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so for us as a small business, we're only a small team. So we were four strong at the start of COVID-19. And for us, it was very difficult to decide if and when to use the furlough scheme because I was quite conscious of only using the furlough scheme if it was required. I didn't want to kind of take advantage of the scheme, and we didn't know how long we were going to be in lockdown and how long the business was going to be impacted. And equally for me, because we are such a small team, everyone is so integral to the success of the business. So it was a very hard decision, and we had to look at the entire business and all the strategies and everything that we put in place and really make some key decisions about change. And what I didn't want to do is furlough someone and end up with someone else having 3 times as much work, because that kind of defeats the object of furlough. If there's not enough work, then by all means furlough your team. But if it was going to mean that someone else was going to work harder, it didn't quite make sense to do it. So it was a really difficult decision for us to make. In the end, we furloughed half of the team. So we furloughed our office manager and project manager because we'd got no active projects, so that made sense. And we took the decision to furlough our business development manager. And that was a really hard decision because we did that knowing that that was going to have an impact on our social media reach, on the conversations that we were having, on the networking we'd be able to attend during lockdown. So furloughing staff for us was it was definitely a risk to the business that we definitely needed to spend a good chunk of time having a think about. Yeah, it wasn't a very easy decision for us. And likewise, when to bring them back was equally as difficult.
I had a vision of you walking a tightrope.
Very much
Yeah.
so, very much so. There were a lot of businesses. So we were very lucky because we are CRM and everything's online. Our transition to working from home and remote working took about an hour just to get the phones from the office and plugged
Yeah,
in. So
yeah,
we actually shut down our office a week before it was announced as lockdown. So I'd sent everyone home and said, get comfortable, get your working spaces set up. Let's make sure you've got everything that you need to be working from home. So you've got that bit of time to comfortably come back to the office if there's anything you've missed. And so it was very quick for us to start working from home, but it was very difficult to then have that final conversation of this is what we're going to do as a business now, and we're equally going to try and protect the business but not impact it negatively at the same time. So yeah, definitely a tightrope walking exercise.
It also sounds as though, I've heard this in varying levels, if you like, how you kept people informed in an honest way, saying, look, we've got to protect the business. We do, although you didn't use these words, you kind of appreciate the impact on people. And it wasn't about being warm and cuddly about it. It's being very honest and very grown up and saying, look, this is how it is. And unfortunately, these are the decisions we're making and here's why we're making them. And whilst it may cause discomfort at that time, in the short term, and I know that some conversations I've had, one or two people who have been on the receiving end of those conversations kind of bear a bit of a grudge. But however, all you can be is have your integrity intact. So that sounds as though, whilst it was a tightrope and it was a hell of a balancing act, you got through it. You got to the other side. Wow, crikey Moses.
Yeah. Definitely, as you've said, that honesty with my team especially was vital. I didn't want anyone being on furlough and not knowing what was happening. So as we lost customers, as we gained inquiries, as we delivered customer service to existing customers and learned about their business and potential impacts on our business as a result moving forward, I kept that information throughout the team. So when we did speak, I was very honest about the updates and where we stood and what that meant for us as a business and kind of where our thought process was. Because as you say, that there are a few people that have been a little bit disgruntled, and I wanted to avoid that wherever possible, which I think we managed to do.
Yeah, it sounds as though you did. I recall a conversation with somebody about, how much information do you give out? You've got a duty of care as a leader. Ideally, all your people and potentially the impact it can have. So drawing that balance of how much you disclose and how much you keep yourself and how long you keep it can be a tension as well. But the only way that you can actually deal with it is, to approach it, to actually deal with it. All the theories in the world don't help until you have to, face with it.
Yeah, I think for us and for me, definitely from a personal and a business point of view, it was about exactly that, but equally about making it those conversations that I was having, as much as it was about the business, it was an equal part checking that the team were okay. Were they? I mean, we had what seems like very silly conversations, but are you sleeping? Are you getting out for your hour of daily exercise? Are you managing to FaceTime your family? And we were having those conversations as well, because I'm a big believer that people's mental health is as important as their physical health, and we tried very much to keep it as much about the individual as it was about the business, and to support them wherever we could.
That's booming through loud and clear. So thank you for that. We also talked about your own leadership and what you learned in this sort of recent couple of months, this passage of time, and you put to relax more. You're a big planner of strategies and plans in place. So having all those plans in place and perhaps seeing them not being able to be carried out, how did that impact on you personally?
So to start with, I was so stressed. my marketing plan went out of the window, my social media plan went out of the window, my 12-month growth plan went out of the window, and I remember being sat at this desk probably about 6 weeks in, and I'd been watching one of my network do a video about how positive they were, and it was all going really well. And like them, I'd been putting out a lot of positive content about, make sure your desk's right, make sure you're talking to people, checking in with your customers. And I just had this moment of, I think the only way I could describe it was exhaustion. I'd spent a lot of time checking on the team. I'd spent a lot of time speaking to customers. I'd spent a lot of time just trying to work out what from those plans I could grasp at. And actually, in retrospect, and I did do this a couple of weeks after the event, but what I should have done is close my laptop and walked away from it. What I actually did was spend about 2 weeks, 6 nights, not eating, drinking a lot, working longer hours. And it was completely unnecessary because I had no control over anything. And about 2 weeks later, and this is why your question was really interesting when it came through, I had a very similar moment. And I'd been recording a video and had an inquiry from a customer, and the manufacturer had rang me, and I'd had a prospect come through all in the space of like 20 minutes, and I was juggling lots of things. And I just got to this moment where none of my plans were making any sense. Everything was getting jumbled. And I just stopped. I went downstairs, I took the dog for a walk, and I just had a moment of calm. And since then coming back, I've approached things completely differently from a planning point of view. I've still got hundreds of plans and I'm still writing things down constantly, but equally I'm all right now if that doesn't get to the end of the plan. I'm happy to learn from what I've managed to accomplish as part of that plan or strategy. So for me, that's it. That's a huge development area.
Oh, wow, that's really insightful. Thank you, because I work with leaders who are great planners like yourself, and often 90+%, 95+% of the time they go to plan, or the plans just slightly vary. But when a catastrophic event, if I may call it that, a seismic shock happens to not just your own business but everybody's, it understandably just throws people, and they're launched into this kind of I'm going to use this analogy. You're like launched into a washing machine, if you like. It's just all topsy-turvy. And you know what? People have the resilience to deal with this, but it's just those that actually get up and start it and know that they're going to get a few knocks and bruises. And situational leadership it's dealing with the cards that are in front of you. And it may not be pretty sometimes, and it may be slightly painful, but you deal with it. Not dealing with it is the wrong thing. Now, with hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, you can look back and say, yes, I could have done that better, or I don't know. But development, absolutely. So you've given me another question to ask you there, and it was, so you mentioned about relaxation. So walking your dog was relaxation. Were there any other? You had that moment where you realised that was important. Were there any other forms of relaxation that you took on?
So I kind of revisited a few of the old things that I used to do. So I've got, you can't quite see, but I've got a house plant on the desk now to fetch a bit of green in. I've got a candle at the other side, which gives me like a really nice aroma to my workspace. I have a designated start time and a designated finish time. And I've kind of brought a little bit of well-being into my working space. So if I have a particularly difficult conversation, or if a plan doesn't go to plan and there's another jolt, with all the government advice that's changing all the time, if those things happen now, I put on a little bit of music, just have 5 minutes, and then restart. And I allow myself the time to reset, even if it's just, sat with my eyes closed for 10 minutes and restarting. And that gives me kind of a new sense of relaxation and of focus. So it's kind of a mix between having that mindset and equally making my space a little bit more comfortable to be in, and a little bit more, I think I've got something nice to look at. I've got something nice that's an aroma, and it's just created a much nicer space for me to work. And I think those things I'll take into the office as well when we do go back full time, and kind of keep that up a little bit.
Oh, great. So yeah, I can see the wisdom in that. There's two things coming out there. One is self-awareness, which is so important for leaders. And two, you've identified something not particularly I've seen through this series of interviews I am having, and the results that came back with the questions, but I have seen in other places, and it's where the leader, I'm going to use the word fails to look after themselves, but I'll qualify that. So it's not an intentional failure. It is actually born of caring. So if there are 24 hours in the day, I'll spend 23 and a half making sure my people are really well. Yeah. The cost of that often to them is to their detriment. That who cares for the carer, or who guards the guard type thing. So taking your own time out is so important, and not in this kind of piece of work I've been doing, but other conversations I've had, people have said, well, I've got more time now, I can have breakfast at home. One guy said he used to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning pre-COVID, and he would use the quiet time to catch up. Now he doesn't wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but if he does, he goes for a walk down the beach about a mile from where he lives. So it completely resets his day, but he feels he's a better leader for being calmer too. So you'd advocate calmness and strategies to keep yourself calm.
Definitely.
Okay, that's one piece of advice I can't ask you at the end then. Okay. So the benefits of hindsight then, what, if anything, would you change? You mentioned about communicating with your team, and you've been talking about that throughout the interview. And given your time again, you'd ensure you'd have regular scheduled chats. Scheduled chats, okay.
I think for me, I was quite conscious, because of the rules of furlough, that I didn't want to schedule anything in that could be deemed as working time. So I didn't want to put a standard time and date in the diary. I didn't want to ask everybody to be on one Zoom call, because I was quite conscious that I didn't want the government coming back at any point and saying these people weren't furloughed. That's not what happened. So I think I was overly cautious from that point of view. And even though I had a Facebook Messenger group that was open to everybody all day, every day, and people could jump in and out, and we had regular emails going out, and I rang people. I think having a designated time where the team got together and had 10, 15 minutes on a call together would have been more structured and allowed them to support each other. Whereas I actually went out and tried to support everyone, and I was supporting the team, but equally, as you've said, I was aware that I wasn't getting that support. So I was ringing, our customers at MD level and checking in with them, because I knew nobody else was. So kind of definitely one of the things that I would have done would have been to schedule that time and allow people to support each other, because it's not a one-person job.
That's very interesting too. Yeah, I've had conversations with people recently about distributed leadership. There are lots of different terms for it, but it's basically you might have the title of MD and you might have lots of responsibilities, but you can't do it all. So devolving information, devolving power, however you want to describe it, it's really important. But there's that old thing about you can delegate authority, but you can't delegate responsibility. So it's got to be done in a very measured way, and a very, not necessarily overly cautious, but a measured and a trusting way, so that when you leave somebody to do something or make those decisions, you're not surprised, or your business doesn't actually suffer for it. But then that's all part of the learning curve. So what about the rest of the team? Have they learned a lot through this, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. So we unfortunately had to make the decision to make one of our team redundant, and then that employment. So that was a difficult decision. And we're very, very lucky that we have a very strong team. So even though that individual's now left us, we left on very good terms. They're still very supportive of the business, and we're still in contact. And the message there has been that they've kind of learned a lot about themselves during the furlough time that they've had off, and learned a lot about what they actually want from employment moving forward, because they've had that time and they've been able to kind of capture the essence of what makes them feel valued as an employee, and what they expect now from future kind of employee-employer relationships. Our technical director has learned, again, a little bit like myself, that he needs to slow down a little bit and not work all the hours. So we've had a couple of conversations over this period of time that, sending me an email at 9 o'clock at night is not acceptable. You're not supposed to be working that late. So that's been an interesting change. And our office manager has never been as glad to be back at work. She's just thriving at the moment because she's missed the routine, she's missed the ownership, she's missed that sense of purpose. So I think we've all kind of learned very different things. But equally, all of those things have made us much stronger as a team, and have kind of defined now what we want to do with the business as a whole, where we want to move forward, what potential things we've not enjoyed doing in the past and have just done out of routine and out of it's been a legacy product and we've always offered it. And actually, we've kind of reassessed some of the things that we've always offered and changed them and molded them into something new that we actually now really enjoy. So yeah, quite a few different things have come out of it, I think.
Crikey, it sounds as though you would be a good case study for change, positive change, and response to crises. So it may be worth you capturing that in some way. Okay. Well, finally then, thank you. You've shared quite a lot of personal stuff there as well. Passion was coming through. Learned a lot of lessons. So the one question I'm asking all respondents, and it wasn't one of the questions on the survey, it's about wisdom. So if you were to impart one piece of wisdom that you've learned over the last couple of months, other than what you've already said, what would that piece of wisdom be?
I think I'm going to go for the cliche a little bit here, but I very much stand by this, and it's to do something today that your future self will thank you for. Whether that is getting that proposal out, making that change to the way that you're doing something, or simply allowing yourself a little bit of time so tomorrow's less stressful. Think about what the future version of you would say thank you for, and do that.
Oh, wow, that's thinking towards tomorrow. That's my motto. No, that's good. I couldn't have paid you for that, but no, that's great. So that just leads me to thank you and remind you, before we publish anything, you'll get to see it to make sure you're happy with it. So it'll go up on YouTube. I'll send you the link before it goes public. But apart from that, thank you very much indeed for taking part, and thank you for your honest sharing.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers now.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.